Al Capone, his life story. Early years, 1899 to 1917. Alphonse Gabriel Capone was born on January 17, 1899, in Brooklyn, New York, to Italian immigrants Gabrielle and Teresa Capone. His father was a barber, and his mother was a seamstress. The family lived in a tough neighborhood, but Capone showed intelligence and potential in school. However, he struggled with discipline and dropped out at age 14 after hitting a teacher. He joined street gangs, including the South Brooklyn Rippers and 40 Thieves Juniors, eventually becoming part of the James Street Boys, who were connected to the powerful 5 Points gang led by Johnny Torrio. Capone worked various jobs, including at a candy store and a bowling alley, before becoming a bouncer and bartender at the Harvard Inn, a saloon on Coney Island owned by gangster Frankie Yale. It was at the Harvard Inn that Capone got his nickname, Scarface. During a fight, he insulted a woman, and her brother slashed his face with a knife, leaving 3 deep scars. Capone was embarrassed by the marks and later claimed he had received them in battle. Moved to Chicago and rise in the Mafia, 1918 to 1925. In 1918, Capone married Irish-American May Coughlin. They had a son named Albert, Sonny, Capone. At the time, Capone was becoming more involved in crime. In 1919, Johnny Torrio invited him to Chicago. Torrio worked for Big Jim Colosimo, a major crime boss who controlled gambling, prostitution, and bootlegging. Capone started working for Torrio and quickly proved to be a tough yet strategic gangster. When Prohibition began in 1920, the demand for illegal alcohol soared. Torrio saw the opportunity, but Colosimo refused to get involved. In 1920, Colosimo was murdered, allegedly on Torrio's orders, and Torrio took over the operation with Capone. Over the next few years, Capone helped build a powerful criminal empire, controlling illegal alcohol production, speakeasies, and gambling dens. He gained a reputation as a ruthless but practical gangster who preferred bribery over violence. In 1925, Torrio was seriously wounded in an assassination attempt and chose to retire, handing control of the outfit to Capone. At just 26 years old, Capone became the most powerful crime boss in Chicago. Peak of power, 1925 to 1929. Capone expanded his empire, earning millions from bootlegging, gambling, and prostitution. He ran the organization like a corporation, assigning responsibilities to trusted associates. At the same time, he crafted a public image as a generous benefactor, donating to charities and flaunting a lavish lifestyle. But Capone's rule was constantly threatened by rivals. His most dangerous enemy was the North Side Gang, led by Bugs Moran. Their feud reached a deadly climax on February 14, 1929, known as the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, when Capone's men, dressed as police officers, executed 7 members of Moran's gang in a garage on Chicago's North Side. Although Capone was in Florida at the time, the public and authorities held him responsible, cementing his image as a brutal crime lord. Fall and arrest, 1929 to 1932. After the massacre, the federal government stepped up its efforts to take Capone down. While local authorities were corrupt, federal agents led by Eliot Ness and his untouchables began dismantling his operations. But the decisive blow came from the IRS. Capone claimed he had no income, but the government proved otherwise, citing his extravagant lifestyle. In 1931, he was found guilty of tax evasion and sentenced to 11 years in prison, a record at the time for such a charge. Prison and decline, 1932 to 1947. Capone first served time at the Atlanta Federal Prison but was transferred to Alcatraz in 1934 to cut off his influence. There, he was completely isolated, and his health began to decline rapidly. Capone suffered from syphilis, which he had contracted in his youth. The disease worsened, attacking his brain. By 1939, he was mentally and physically deteriorated and was released early due to his condition. He spent his remaining years in his mansion on Palm Island, Florida. His mental state was so poor that, according to witnesses, he behaved like a child. On January 25, 1947, Al Capone died of heart failure at age 48. He was buried at Mount Carmel Cemetery in Illinois. Legacy. Al Capone remains one of the most infamous figures in American criminal history. His mix of brutality, business acumen, and charisma made him a legendary figure. Though his empire collapsed, his image lives on in books, films, and series about the Prohibition era and organized crime.